Version 4.1. Initializing upgrades. Accessing peace. Existing without violence, with the ability to calmly resolve conflict. Downloading love. An overwhelming, deep, positive affection towards others. Activating liberty. Living your life as you see fit without infringing on the lives of others.
Welcome to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I have to begin this show. I would be an absolute horrible host if I did not begin this show with an apology. I have to apologize for not having a show this past Monday. And you might be able to tell that there's still a little bit of roughness to my voice. My voice is, almost back to normal, but still a little rough. But on Monday, I felt absolutely horrible. I had plans on Sunday to go to a wrestling pay-per-view event down in Boston. I wasn't feeling that great, but I spent $120 on a ticket, and I knew I would have fun, so I went, and yes, I did have fun, and I yelled a little too much, and on Monday, my voice was so bad, I strained through recording the news Monday morning, and then I tried to not speak very much at all on Monday, and I knew that I would not be able to do a 30-minute show. So it was one of those things of, I could have put something out that was absolutely horrible, but I didn't want to do that. The newscast was, about all the speaking that I really had in me. So I did get the news on Monday, had to, take some recovery time on Monday, and now I'm back at it and feeling, I would say, about 90%. Still a little bit of this weird seasonal stuffiness stuff, but I'm intaking a lot of vitamin C, and I've got my Vicks vapor stick that I'm sniffing, and yeah, I'm breathing good, better, and yes, I'm here, and today is Wednesday, which means that it's the Ask Me Anything. And as I often do when there's not a lot of questions, and not questions that require me to go in depth to answer said question, I will take the opportunity to sort of expand the question. And I'll let you know what I'm talking about when I get to that question. But we begin. The first question says, we listened to Free Talk Live for a few minutes the other day and had to turn it off when Ian and Mark started talking about pillows again. And I'm going to do this just because I think it's funny. The pillow ad that they were talking about must have been the MyPillow, and I'm actually reclined on a MyPillow right now. That's all I will say about the pillow, other than it's absolutely as wonderful as people say it is. The question continues. You weren't on the show that day either, so we moved quickly along to other listening. Is there a schedule that we can consult to find out when you are on Free Talk Live? And there's not necessarily a schedule per se that you can go and look at, but after the election on Tuesday, November 8th, I will return to my normal Free Talk Live schedule, which is Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So basically, during the week except for Tuesday. Monday through Friday except for Tuesday. So Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is my regular Free Talk Live schedule. I will resume that next Wednesday, November the 9th. The next question has to do with the election. The question is, will a write-in vote count for you in Virginia? And then he includes a link over to an article from, I believe this is the Richmond Times Dispatch, where it talks about the procedures in Virginia for having a write-in vote for president count, or actually a write-in vote for any office in Virginia, having that count. So Virginia is one of the states where they require write-in candidates to file a declaration of intent. And I'm not actually opposed to the concept of having a write-in declaration for candidates. Now, some of these places have fairly early deadlines for candidates to file their write-ins, and other states have fairly late deadlines. Virginia is one of the states with a somewhat early-ish deadline. Their deadline has passed, but Virginia requires presidential candidates to file a slate of electors. Because, remember, with the presidential election, it's actually a slate of electors that you are voting for. You are not actually voting for a presidential candidate. But in Virginia, you have to file this slate of electors, and you must include 11 electors, or however many electors Virginia would have at the election. This year it happens to be 11. That will get changed after the census that happens in 2020. So the presidential election of 2020, again, will be 11 electors in Virginia. Then they redistrict, so the next election where that changes would be the 2024 presidential election. So every 10 years, they do the census, and then they redistrict, and it changes how many state reps some states have. And the way they determine the number of electors, it's the number of state reps plus the number of senators. So it's the total congressional delegation that a state has in Washington. So the members of the U.S. House of Representatives plus the members of the Senate. So to continue on, no, I did not file in Virginia. I did not file in any of the states that require a slate of electors, because that would have required a lot more effort than what I'm putting into my write-in campaign. And if you're not familiar or aware, yes, I am doing a write-in campaign for the presidential election. And a lot of that was, spurred on because of some of the absolute horrible things that the Johnson-Weld campaign have done. And it's gotten worse in the last few days. I didn't think it could, but it has, and I will continue here in moments on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
In 2115 New England, there are no borders, no states, and no regulations, yet never has a more peaceful and prosperous place existed. But Mr. Drake Security Company has seen better days. Faced with the prospect of waning power, Mr. Drake intends to replace the anarchy of New England with a government. But at what cost? Will anybody care? And can anyone stop him? Anarchy in New England by Joe Jarvis is available from Amazon.com and all major bookstores.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
Before I continue talking about the election, I want to make sure that I talk about something that is not depressing at all. And that would be gold and silver. And where can you go to get some gold and silver? Well, you can go to the same place that people have been going to for nearly 40 years, and that would be Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Since 1977, they've been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver, and they take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. So call Roberts & Roberts Brokerage today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760. That's 800-874-9760, or visit them online at rrbi.co. That's RRBI, as in Roberts and Roberts Brokerage Incorporated, rrbi.co. So let's get into, and I will post a link to the Richmond, the Richmond Times Dispatch article that will be posted in the show notes. And I was wrong. It's 13 electors in Virginia. They have 11 members of the U.S. House plus the 2 Senate seats. But again, while I'm touching on that, let me just go ahead and continue what I was saying about I did not file a declaration of intent in any state that required electors because I didn't want to, have to put in that much effort to try to find people to be electors. And then it sort of, lets the cat out of the bag of what I was doing, and I didn't want that to happen. So, all right, here's the states where no electors are required. And I did file in Kansas that requires a $20 check. Kentucky required a $50 check plus electors, so skipped them. But all of the other states, it was just, fill out this piece of paper, get it notarized, and send it in. So I have filed, and the states where a write-in vote for Darryl W. Perry or Darryl Perry or D.W. Perry, some variant of that name should count, and I use the word should because whether or not the election officials actually follow the laws and the rules is a completely different question. But that list is on my website, DarrylWPerry.com. That's DarrylW Perry, Perry, DarrylWPerry.com. But I was saying that, and this is, the way things happen to where, the little train of thought goes and then pull a lever and goes off and pull another lever and, trolley problem. But I was saying that I'm not opposed to having, the declaration of intent for write-in candidates. And that's because I like the idea of if somebody wants to have write-in votes counted for them, they notify the election officials of, hey, please count write-in votes for me. And then the election officials know whether or not to count the write-in vote that says Mickey Mouse. Did Mickey Mouse file declaration of intent? Nope. Okay, that goes in the scatter column. But what a lot of places do, and there are some states that they don't have a declaration of intent, and that's what I'm talking about, is the states like New Hampshire and Vermont and Rhode Island and Alabama and Pennsylvania and Iowa, where there is no such thing as a declaration of intent for a write-in candidate. Which means, in theory, every write-in vote is valid. Now, at the lowest level, the precinct level, those get tabulated and put on a sheet. Some places, those then go from the precinct to either, like the city or the town. Sometimes, the precinct is the town or the city. But then, they might go up to the county level and get further tabulated there before going to the state secretary of state. Other places, like New Hampshire, they just go from the precinct to the municipality to the secretary of state. So the county is not involved at all in counting election results in New Hampshire. Now, the question is whether or not above the precinct level, those write-ins get tabulated any further than what they were at the precinct level, and then all of those numbers just get added together, and then they say, scatter. So if you ever look at election returns and you see scatter, that's all of your write-in votes for Mickey Mouse, Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, Pat Dye, Gene Okerlund, Hulk Hogan, Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage, John Cena, the list goes on and on. Insert local celebrity here. Negan, Dumpster Fire, Giant Meteor, Darryl W. Perry, John McAfee, what have you. Those in a lot of places will just get listed as scatter, even though they're technically valid votes per state law. So what the Declaration of Intent does is, again, it lets those election officials know which write-in votes someone actually wants counted. And then they know, oh, yes, count all of the ones for Perry, and that goes to Darryl. Or count all of the ones for D. Perry, because that's what he filed on his declaration of intent. He wants everything for Darryl, Darryl W, DW, D. Perry, whatever. So then they know what should and should not be counted. And I'm fine with the declaration of intent. Now, what I have problems with are that, in some of these places, they have the deadline in July and early August. Well, the whole point of having a write-in option is so that if something happens close to the election, somebody can then jump in. Oh, hey, I wasn't able to make the ballot, but I still want to be a candidate. And then they let, people wind up voting for them through the write-in. Now, there's something in an article from the BBC about write-in votes, and that's definitely a foreign concept, pun definitely intended. It's a foreign concept for the Brits because in British elections, there's no such thing as a write-in vote. Just like if you live in Louisiana or Oklahoma or Nevada, you cannot cast a ballot with a write-in vote. In the UK, they don't have write-in votes. And Richard Winger, who's the editor of Ballot Access News, has a very good explanation for why write-ins should be allowed in the United States. I'll get into that. And, of course, it's the extreme example, but you have to make those from time to time. Stay tuned. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
It is the year 91,001 BCE. Witness humanity's origins in Hyperchronius, a classic role-playing game for Windows PCs with a story like no other game before. A liberty-oriented experience that is not to be missed. Go to ZOG.Ninja to get your copy of Hyperchronius today. Use the code FPP to get $1 off. Hyperchronius, ZOG.Ninja, code FPP.
This is Jeremy Scott, host of Dark 30. You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. Today is Wednesday. It's the Ask Me Anything, but I'm going to, sort of reverse it here for a moment and ask you a question. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? If you said yes to both of those or either of those, then you need Spend-A-Bit in your arsenal. What is Spend-A-Bit? Spend-A-Bit is the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spend-A-Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend-A-Bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin accepting merchant like I am, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. Spendabit.fppradio.com. So in the BBC article, and I will post this link in the show notes, you can read the full article if you wish, but they write here, there are instances when write-ins do serve an important purpose, such as when there's a sudden death or indictment of a candidate. And Mississippi is the only state in the country that only allows write-in votes if a candidate dies or resigns, or withdraws from the race. Richard Winger, again the editor of Ballot Access News, cites a 1998 state legislative race in Tennessee when the Republican nominee was arrested for murdering the Democratic nominee just before the ballots were printed, and they were the only two candidates on the ballot. Winger says the Democratic nominee's name was removed from the ballot because he was dead. The Republican nominee had not yet been convicted, so his name had to remain. So there was only one name on the ballot, that of the murderer. Fortunately, Tennessee allows write-in votes, and the murdered man's widow launched a write-in campaign, and she won with 90% of the vote. And again, yes, I realize that's an extreme example of, why we need write-in votes or the ability to cast a write-in vote. But then you have things like, and this is part of why I launched my write-in campaign, some of the horrible things happening from the Johnson-Weld campaign. Most of them things that Weld has done. But Johnson is not without his faults. The article here comes from Reason, and they published this earlier today, and I'm sure unless you've just completely missed the internet over the last probably 16 hours or so, you have probably at least seen a snippet about what William Weld said yesterday on MSNBC. Where he said, quote, "I'm here vouching for Mrs. Clinton," end quote. The Reason article here says, even before William Weld told Rachel Maddow last night that, quote, "I'm here vouching for Mrs. Clinton," end quote, Fox Business Network host and Reason contributor Kennedy, who had raised some eyebrows a month ago when she grilled Weld about his campaign behavior and motivations, gave Libertarian presidential nominee Gary Johnson the what for about his running mate. And they then, in this article, have a tweet from Matt Welch, who says that was amazing, with a link over to, I believe, a short video. Kennedy pleaded, "Please keep Bill Weld away from the Libertarian Party." Johnson was awkwardly silent at the end of the interview. The full interview can be viewed at, and they have a link. Libertarians of both the capital L and small L variety have treated Weld with suspicion ever since, and in fact, a decade before he converted to the party's cause, 2 weeks before this May's nominating convention, in which the former Massachusetts, I think they are missing a word here. I think it's supposed to say the former Massachusetts governor squeaked by in a second ballot by the narrowest of margins on the bitterly divided convention floor. 5 months of the is he not supporting Hillary Clinton later, many of those ideologically disposed to the root of the Libertarian ticket have clearly had enough, though it's obviously anecdotal. I have never seen Libertarian Twitter so nearly unanimous on a close-to-home political issue. And then they have links to several tweets by various people. The author of this article then says, "I say near unanimous because there are some Libertarians still defending Weld, including Josh Guckert at the Libertarian Republic and a handful of people on Twitter." And I would certainly add to the conversation, the suggestion that a Weldless LP ticket may never have gotten anywhere near the amount of media interest and poll support without such an Acela Corridor-approved wingman. And that's really the thing. Is the people that wanted Bill Weld said, without Bill Weld, we will not get media attention. Without Bill Weld, we will not be included in the polls. But I tell you what, the Green Party candidate, the Green Party ticket, Jill Stein, has been included in the polls. She does not have a former Republican governor. She does not have a New England progressive, other than herself, on the ticket. So is it the New England progressive Bill Weld that is getting the LP included in the polls? I don't think so. There was also guarantees that with Bill Weld, Gary Johnson would be in the debates. I'm glad he wasn't. Stay tuned. There's more here on Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
When you hear the word lobbyist, you probably think about greedy corporations, but not all lobbyists are the same. Some are fighting for the freedoms you hold dear. Liberty Lobby LLC is doing just that in New Hampshire, working hard to represent you, not some special interest group. You can help by going to libertylobby.xyz, where your contribution will give us the tools we need to ensure that your voice is heard. Visit libertylobby.xyz today to find out more.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Welcome back to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. And I cannot wait. Yes, I had a Howard Dean moment there. I cannot wait for this election to be over, and then I don't have to talk about how absolutely horrible and unlibertarian Bill Weld and Gary Johnson are. And one of the things, and I realize, this is where I should be winding down, but I'm getting so frustrated. One of the things that is so frustrating is the quote-unquote libertarians that keep wanting to move the goalpost. So they'll say, well, Gary Johnson, he's the libertarian nominee. Right, but he doesn't hold libertarian principles. He even says on his website that while he's libertarian-minded, he is not tied down to a political ideology. Well, he's better than Clinton and Trump. Yeah, and, that's moving the goalpost. The libertarian candidate should actually be a libertarian. They should not just be he's better than these other people. Well, skin cancer is better than pancreatic cancer or kidney cancer. So it's still cancer. I don't care that it's better. I don't want to vote for cancer. I cannot vote for a cancer. I cannot vote for somebody that I know is going to wind up not actually promoting and advocating my ideals. Which is why there's not very many people that I actually vote for. I oftentimes write in none of the above because I know that the vast majority of people that are on the ballot are not going to do the right thing. They're not going to promote the ideas of liberty. And we saw this in Nevada. And I don't know how many of you have followed what happened in Nevada recently, where there was a former Democrat turned Republican turned Libertarian that was the deciding vote on giving a $750 million welfare check to the 14th richest man in the United States. The Nevada legislature voted to give welfare to the owner of the Oakland Raiders, who is the 14th richest man in the United States of America. And the claim is, well, we've got to help him build a football stadium, and then it'll bring jobs and this and that. And so there's all of these convoluted rationales for why it was okay to give this giant welfare check to the 14th richest man in America. And I'm glad the LP Nevada, you have made me proud by censuring John Moore. But then John Moore turns around and says, you are violating the non-aggression principle by censoring me, blah, 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 blah. You're a failed Republican. Go back to the Republican Party. Get out of my party if you want to advocate for big government. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. Send those over AMA@FPPradio.com.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copy Heart. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News, and also get a copy of the monthly newspaper FPP News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.